Today is a hands-on overview and first drive of a highly anticipated electric vehicle, the Polestar 2. I was not paid by Polestar to do this. Today's sponsor is actually Skillshare, so stick around to the end for more about that. This Polestar 2 actually belongs to a kind stranger who emailed me out of the blue and asked if I wanted to check it out, and I jumped at the opportunity because I've heard so many good things about this car. And when it comes to electric vehicles, it's safe to say Tesla is the industry standard. Like it or not, when a new EV comes out, it's immediately compared to Tesla, and rightfully so. Tesla has done a lot to become the leader in that space. I'm a satisfied Model 3 owner, so that's the perspective I'm taking for this first impressions video. So let's see how the Polestar 2 compares to a Tesla. The Polestar 2 is an all-electric 5-door fastback produced by a subsidiary under Volvo. So even though Polestar is technically its own brand, they're still owned by Volvo, and you'll notice the Polestar 2 design is very Volvo-esque. In fact, it uses Volvo's compact modular architecture platform, which gives the Polestar 2 a unique battery arrangement. The battery pack is laid out underneath both the front and rear seats and also stacked into the center console and through what would be a transmission tunnel on a gas car. Now, this design allows for a little more legroom in the back seat compared to a Model 3. The Polestar 2 has dual electric motors, goes 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.7 seconds, and has a 78 kilowatt hour battery that travels an estimated 233 miles on a full charge. It starts right around $60,000 in the US, which is $13,000 more than a dual motor Model 3 and $10,000 more than a dual motor Model Y. But keep in mind, the Polestar 2 still has that $7,500 federal tax credit, which Tesla no longer has. So if you qualify for that full amount, it cuts down on that price significantly. But a dual motor Model 3's range is 120 miles more for less money, which is a huge difference and one of the biggest advantages of choosing Tesla over Polestar right now. It has 6 colors to choose from, and this particular one has the optional $5,000 performance pack that features Brembo brakes, Öhlins dual flow valve dampers for better suspension, 20-inch forged alloy wheels, and special edition seatbelts, which really catch the eye to say the least. Now, the Polestar 2 does have a convenient feature that the Tesla Model 3 and Y don't have, which is a hands-free automatic hatchback opening that allows you to open the hatchback by waving your foot underneath the car. The rear seat storage area has some useful features like netted side compartments, clips, straps, and a 12-volt socket. There's about 14 cubic feet of storage in the rear area, which is right on par with Model 3. With the second row folded down, it has about 38 cubic feet, which is still considerably smaller than the Model Y's 68 total cubic feet. The Polestar 2 also has a frunk that adds 1 more cubic feet of storage, and it comes with a divider, which if taken out gives more room, but even then it still seems to be a little bit smaller than the Model 3 frunk based on my eye test. Now, just like with a Tesla, you can configure your smartphone to be your key, and the car will automatically unlock and lock as you walk up and walk away. But unlike Tesla, which uses its own proprietary software for the user interface, the Polestar 2 is the first car with Google's Android Automotive operating system built in. Android Automotive is a full operating system designed specifically for vehicles and shouldn't be confused with Android Auto, which relies on an external device. And just like with Tesla, the Polestar 2 has over-the-air or OTA software capabilities, which is awesome. This means the car will download and install software updates automatically over Wi-Fi while it's parked at home. I don't think OTA capability is fully up and running for US owners just yet, but Polestar is starting to roll out updates in small groups, then working its way to a full rollout soon. And that's a big feature because OTA software updates is one of the best things about owning a Tesla, and I'm glad to see it finally coming to other cars. Now, the interior is something that definitely stood out to me when I was comparing it to my Model 3. What the Polestar 2 lacks in range and battery tech compared to Tesla, it makes up for in its luxurious interior design. Even though the interior can still be categorized as having a modern, minimal Swedish design to it, it's definitely more premium feeling than the interior of the Model 3 and Y. I've grown to actually prefer Tesla's extremely minimalist design, so it's a little strange to sit in a car like the Polestar 2 because I have mixed feelings. First, it feels more premium and luxurious, but it also feels more cluttered and overwhelming. Either way, the interior is really nice. It's made of environmentally friendly vegan material and has a gray and black color palette that suits it very well. When I first sat in it, the things that stood out to me the most were the vantage point, so I felt like I was sitting up higher compared to my Model 3, and the driver controls, which are obviously way different than my Tesla. Model 3 and Model Y have a single 15-inch landscape touchscreen in the center and no other screen, while the Polestar 2 has an 11.2-inch portrait touchscreen in the center, along with a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster behind the wheel, which gives the driver quick viewing and controls over important car information. An instrument cluster is something that I haven't really missed since getting my Tesla. I love the clean, minimalist dash and view out of my Model 3, but I don't think having an instrument cluster can be labeled as bad by any means. It can actually be quite nice when driving because the navigation directions show up on the instrument cluster, making it a little easier to see what your next driving direction is. Now, the center touchscreen running Android Automotive is quite impressive. It's divided into a few different sections, including navigation, phone, audio, and settings. I really liked how intuitive it was for someone like me who didn't know anything about the Polestar 2 or its controls. I was able to quickly move around into the different sections and find settings that could easily be changed. Now, the screen was very responsive and looked crispy and high def. This was definitely a good first experience for me with this Google OS, and I think it will just get better with time. And just like with my Tesla, the Polestar benefits from having Google Maps as the integrated navigation system, and it also provides useful EV-specific information. So, for example, if you tap the charging station icon, it shows the closest charging stations and how long you'll have to charge for. Even though I still prefer a landscape center touchscreen, I found that the smaller portrait touchscreen was actually easier for me to reach when using the right half of the screen compared to my Model 3. A downside of the portrait screen, however, is the rear view camera, which is smaller compared to in a Tesla, but Polestar makes up for this by giving the driver the option of a full screen bird's eye view when backing up, which is really useful and something Tesla still doesn't have yet. Even though I felt comfortable and had enough legroom, one downside of the interior that my wife pointed out was how she felt that the front seat space felt narrower and tighter compared to the Model 3, and it's mainly because of how wide the center console is in the Polestar 2. It wasn't a huge issue, but something we noticed for sure. Unlike the Model 3 and Y, the Polestar 2 has driving controls on the center console itself, along with many other controls on the steering wheel and steering wheel stalks. It was a little confusing to see what all these did in the short amount of time I had with the car, so I was a little overwhelmed, but I'm sure if you read the user manual, you'd be fine with knowing what each control does. It also has a wireless smartphone charger in the center console and some additional storage spaces throughout, along with 2 USB ports in the front and 2 in the rear. Now, the Polestar 2 also has more controls for rear passengers compared to Model 3 and Y. A similar feature that Polestar shares with Tesla, however, is the beautiful glass roof, which is something I take for granted when driving my Tesla, and I always miss it on other cars that don't have it, but luckily the Polestar 2 has one that looks just as good. Now, unfortunately, I didn't drive the car for a long time or long distance because it had about 35 miles of range on it, but I enjoyed the short drive I had. The steering felt nice, the suspension was very smooth, and the ride quality was top-notch, as you'd expect from a Volvo-inspired car. The quickness seemed on par, if not better, than my single-motor Model 3, and even though it doesn't match the gold standard of Tesla's Autopilot and full self-driving, the Polestar 2 does have its own driver assistance system called Pilot Assist, which uses a camera and radar to help the driver keep the vehicle in the lane and maintain an even speed and a set time interval from the vehicle ahead. Now, I was able to try this out very briefly, mainly because I didn't know what controls were tied to Pilot Assist and wanted to be extremely careful with somebody else's brand new car, but from the 10 seconds or so that I used it, it seemed to do its job just fine, so take that for what it is. Now, another useful feature I liked when driving was having Google Voice controls at my fingertips, so you could press the voice button on the steering wheel and tell the car to navigate to a certain place, and it would automatically show the route on the touchscreen, just like in a Tesla. Navigate to Royal's Hot Chicken.
Royal's Hot Chicken. All right.
You can also do many other voice commands, so it'll be interesting to see who progresses faster with more sophisticated voice commands going forward. I will say it's a good thing that Polestar 2 has a bird's eye view and active blind spot monitoring lights on the side mirrors, which Tesla doesn't have because the view out of the rear view mirror and over the shoulder are not that great on the Polestar 2. Now, overall, I really enjoyed this car. It shares a lot of great features with Tesla while adding some useful features that Tesla currently doesn't have. The fit and finish, premium interior, and ride quality were my favorite things about the Polestar 2. However, it would be difficult to justify spending more money for less range compared to a Model 3 or Y. I think if you have a rather large budget and qualify for a full tax credit, and you want to use this mainly for a commuter car and not for long road trips, or you're adding this as a secondary car to your gas car, then it's definitely worth checking out. But if you want the best bang for your buck and need an electric car that will replace your current car that has the longest range and the ability to road trip with the supercharger network, your best choice is still a Tesla Model 3 or Y, in my opinion. What do you think of the Polestar 2? Let me know in the comments below. Today's sponsor is Skillshare, which is an online learning community with thousands of modern classes for creative and curious people. It's a great place to build upon existing passions and explore new skills. Skillshare hosts classes on interesting topics such as finance, content creation, and productivity, but it's also a community of like-minded people just like you and me. My wife recently quit her job to go full-time on our videography business, so I decided to take their course called Going Freelance, Building and Branding Your Own Success by Justin Geniak, where I learned some essential frameworks on building a successful freelance business by developing a strong body of work with a clear mission and how to market and network to set myself up for financial success. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, so there are no ads, and they're constantly launching new classes. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description below will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity today.